Okay, here we are. It is exactly 12 noon here in Ireland, and my name is Raphaëlle O'Connor. I would like to welcome you all to our webinar around personalized nutrition. And today we have part one. We are going to discuss the foundations of personalized nutrition. We have two speakers who are experts in the field, Nard Clabbers and Joshua Anthony, who have kindly agreed to join us today and share their experience with us. So we will go through a couple of topics together, and also please feel free to engage with us, ask any questions that you may have through the chat. We will go through that at the end of the webinar together and answer anything that might trigger your attention or your interest. So thank you very much, Sevan, for also being with us and supporting us during the webinar, going through the slides and compiling all of the different comments from our audience. So we will start with the next slide, if that's okay. Thank you. And again, just to go through the agenda, what we are going to cover today, we are going to discuss the definition around personalized nutrition, because there are so many different terminology that can be used to describe this important topic. We're also going to look at consumer behavior and how does the consumer engage with personalized nutrition. We will go through some of the opportunities, challenges, and gaps that brand owners or manufacturers or marketers may have to address personalized nutrition. And also, what are the myths and misconceptions that are somehow associated with personalized nutrition? Thank you very much, Sevan. Let's go to the next slide. And as I mentioned, we have a special guest with us today. For those who don't know me, my name is Raphaëlle, and I am the proud director and owner of the company iNutrition. We do quite a lot of work around product design and formulation directly relevant to customized nutrition and personalized nutrition. If we can go to the next slide, Siobhan, and see some other aspects of the work that we do with iNutrition, looking at real-time analysis to manage risk and support better decision-making around innovation. We also have expertise around food science, food technology, food processing, and a lot of activities around project management and how to develop robust and resilient pipeline and portfolio. So personalized nutrition very much fits into that space in many different ways, and I think our experts will go through that in more details today. So maybe with the next slide, Siobhan, I'd like to introduce Nard Clabbers, who is the founder of Nutrition Consultancy. Good afternoon, Nard. Can you just give us a brief synopsis of your experience and expertise in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me start also by thanking you for organizing all of this. Really happy to be on the panel, on the webinar today. So my name is Nard Clabbers. I am a nutritionist, studied human nutrition and worked for the industry for, let's say, a decade. Worked for TNO, a Dutch research organization, for another decade, leading their nutrition and health research program. Then set up a research consortium in personalized nutrition, had my own startup in personalized nutrition, and then followed up with what I'm doing now, founded NCNC Nutrition Consultancy, and basically helping knowledge institutes, smaller and larger corporations to navigate their way through the world of the personalized nutrition market, helping them with innovation, helping them with strategy, and really enjoying what I'm doing, and happy to take the discussion on with Josh.
Thank you very much, Nard. And then on the other side of the ocean, we have Josh, who is having an early start with us today from the US. Good morning, Josh.
Oh, good morning, Raph. And I would just want to echo Nard's comments to thank you and Siobhan for organizing this webinar. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I'm Josh Anthony. I'm the founder and CEO of Nlumn. We really work to help companies succeed in the personalized nutrition health marketplace by marrying consumer insights as it relates to personalized and precision nutrition consumers with science to help companies in terms of developing strategies for winning products and services. I founded Nlumn about 5 years ago now, but over the course of my career, I've worked with both startups as well as large companies. I was the founding chief science officer for the personalized nutrition company Habit until we sold that in 2019. Also spent some time with some big companies like the Campbell Soup Company, Mead Johnson, which is now part of Reckitt, and Unilever. But whether I've been working in sort of fuzzy front end of innovation to product development or commercialization, I've had a real passion throughout my career for translating science into products and services that can help people. And I've had the opportunity to work on more than 150 products backed by science. And big or small, personalize it for the masses. It's about helping every individual make better choices to live a healthier life.
Thank you so much, Josh. And as you said, you know, translating that science is really at the core of personalized nutrition. So without further ado, I think we are going to start going a little bit more granular into what personalized nutrition actually is. And with that, I see Nard has done some digging, trying to bring a clearer definition to us about what personalized nutrition actually means.
Absolutely. So this is from a position paper that I co-authored together with Judith from Food Valley. Food Valley is a Dutch innovation organization in food, and basically they have one of their pillars in their strategy is personalized nutrition, and they were looking at, okay, what are the barriers for companies to be successful in personalized nutrition. And there were quite some barriers, and one of the barriers was basically that there was no common ground to talk about personalized nutrition. There was not a clear definition also of personalized nutrition. So if you would go, as I did, in a small company, in a startup, go to an investor, go to a larger corporation and say, hey, we're in personalized nutrition, then everyone would have a different idea of what personalized nutrition meant. So in this position paper, we actually described how personalized nutrition originated, what, let's say, the elements in personalized nutrition, looking at it from legal, looking at it from a scientific standpoint, looking at it from a business standpoint, to really describe the status of personalized nutrition and to use that position paper as a stepping stone for further developments of personalized nutrition. And I had the honor and the pleasure of working on the paragraph of the definition. So I actually looked at all of the different definitions in existence of personalized nutrition and came up with this one, which is very big, very broad, but could, how do you say that? We did get, let's say, a shared opinion on this definition from all of the 53 co-authors of this position paper, from academia and also from corporate. I think Josh was also one of the co-authors. So I think it's really important that personalized nutrition is not per se a product. So it's not per se a personalized nutrition product. So if you talk to producers of nutrition, they often are very scared of, let's say, the whole concept of personalized nutrition, because they think it's about making a lot of different products. But it could very well also be a service. And I often quote Unilever in this, in saying that personalized nutrition for them, for Unilever, is not about making 1 billion different products, but 1 billion different pieces of advice. So I think that idea of personalized nutrition as much more a service-oriented market than a product-oriented market, I think is really relevant. So I always see the value of personalized nutrition much more in helping people when they enter a supermarket, for instance, helping people making their choice out of all of the existing products, instead of adding 1 or 2 or 10 products to those already existing products. So service or product. It is always based on some kind of data. So it uses individual specific information. So some kind of data about me is relevant in personalized nutrition. It's very obvious, but it's relevant nonetheless. So it's about my goal, which is really important. It's about data that I have about my needs, about my willingness to change my behavior, about my psychology also to change that behavior, about my vitamin D level or whatever. So it's about this individual specific information. Also, the whole concept of personalized nutrition should be based in science. So we wanted to have that in the definition to also distance us from all of the inflated claims that were being made and are still being made around personalized nutrition. So we think personalized nutrition should be a science-based field to also empower consumers. So the idea is always to give consumers control, to give consumers back control about their lives and about what they can purchase. To, as I said, promote a sustainable dietary behavioral change. And that behavioral change, again, is also important, because in the end, that is what is needed to make personalized nutrition work in the real world. So you can have a really fantastic personalized nutrition scheme where you test DNA or blood, you give people the best advice that you can possibly give them. But if they don't change their behavior and change the way they eat, change the way they exercise, change the way they take supplements, nothing changes. So this behavioral aspect, so what people actually do with the advice, is extremely important. And then this may result in measurable benefits. Obviously, you want to be able to measure that for the improvement in health maintenance or disease-specific benefits. So it's really broad. It's not only to stay healthy, but it's also to prevent disease. That could definitely be personalized nutrition, which now is often called food as medicine. But then we're going into the subject of, let's say, all of the different descriptors of personalized nutrition. I always like to use personalized nutrition as a very broad description of the whole field, but also wanted to give you a little bit of background of how this definition actually came into existence. So I hope that I've done that with this, longer explanation of this slide.
Thank you so much, Nard. This is really helpful. There are so many different aspects to it. So that's an excellent kind of introduction to this topic. And if we can go through the next slide, I'd love to give Josh an opportunity as well to give us or share with us his own insights around personalized nutrition and where is it now. Any more thoughts on what Nard has mentioned, Josh, around personalized nutrition and where we're at today with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a couple thoughts, and I'll just actually use his framing around the Food Valley definition to underscore a few things and talk about where we need to focus. I think one of the challenges with respect to the industry or where it's been now is it's been defined largely by a technology push. We've been very focused, rightfully so, in continuing to advance the science, because the reality of it is we need to continue to do research to prove efficacy. But the gap, which I think is starting to be addressed, is really helping to define the consumer problem to solve. And to Nard's point, right, it doesn't have to be N of one, but it can be like-minded groups, often referred to as precision nutrition. But I still think it's extremely important for a company to go into this field thinking about what problem can they solve best? Who's the person or people behind personalized nutrition? Too many companies in the early days came with the technology with the belief that they would be able to address a broad range of needs. And that lack of focus makes it very difficult in terms of not only delivering a viable solution, but being able to scale. The second thing I think that we're recognizing and is inherent in the definition that Nard shared is it's not just about the science, but it's about changing behavior. And I think more and more people are recognizing that this is critically important to be successful in this space. And one of the biggest challenges there, and I know that we're going to be talking a bit more about this, but it's data and data access. People are collecting an enormous amount of data on themselves. Companies are collecting an enormous amount of data on their customers and their consumers. But data sharing, data structuring, and data enabling through tools like AI or machine learning are all going to be very important to better understand individual behaviors and then be able to change them consistent with their goals.
And also perhaps funny to add to Josh's comment, because he said he mentioned the term precision nutrition, which could indeed be used to describe, let's say, more target group personalization. It's funny because that term is used completely differently by different people. So there's one group of people that uses precision nutrition to describe this group-based personalization. There's also a group of people, I think I count myself to that, that use precision nutrition as even more precise and even more personalized and even more specific than personalized nutrition. And those people, they use targeted nutrition to describe nutrition that is more focused on specific groups. Anyway, that's exactly why I said it's really important to kind of, check with each other the terms that you're using, because you can very quickly go into a completely different direction and don't understand what you're talking about.
It's a really interesting point, Nard. I was doing a panel at another meeting, and I was on there with an investor, and I was talking. We were getting into this discussion about definitions, and what we realized real time on the panel, so we had different definitions.
Yeah,
I was using precision nutrition just as I use it here for a group of people with target nutrition, and he was with a large investor group, and really focused on investing in technologies, and so he was looking at precision nutrition as the next evolution of precision. Yeah. So I do like precision technology, right? Going deeper.
Yeah, indeed, exactly.
Biology, right? So yeah, it's important to be clear. So thanks for clarifying.
Thank you, guys. I think I have to step in because the discussion could go on for quite some time, but thank you very much for your input. I'd like to introduce an opportunity to engage with our audience, and Siobhan kindly put a poll together. So I think, Siobhan, if you want to launch that at the back end there, so that our audience can also interact with us and tell us what do you consider the biggest challenge in developing and scaling a personalized nutrition business? So I don't know if that's launched, but this is our chance now to start gathering the thoughts of our audience, and we can review that at the end of the webinar. So with this, I wouldn't mind if you can translate or move to the next slide, please, Siobhan. Transition to the next slide, please. And we already touched on that, the importance of data and how relevant this is in the personalized nutrition space. So again, thank you for already touching on this topic. Is there any additional area that you would like to cover? And I suppose this kind of overlap between the personal data of the consumer and also all of those data that are available out there around food and beverages. How do we ensure that those two are actually good quality, good quantity, and that they can somehow help us to navigate our way through personalized nutrition?
Absolutely.
Maybe
So,
Nard, yes, please.
Yeah. No, so, absolutely. So I mean, personalized nutrition, fundamentally is about data and is about marrying those two data clouds. So there is a lot of data on food, right? So what the nutritional content is, but also how it's made, perhaps even the scientific evidence on the health effects on larger groups of people. So there's a lot of knowledge around that food. It's one of the, if you compile all of the data around food, it's one of the biggest databases on earth I've been told once. So there is a lot of data that is present there, but it's quite hard. And I've actually worked with people who are trying to link all of these databases from a marketing university. It's quite hard to get that into a database that actually understands each other, right? So that you have this one cloud of data on food. But once you have that, then it's a matter of marrying that, of making it interactable with the data cloud around a person in a meaningful way. So also around a person, there's a lot of data available. There's your medical record, there's perhaps data from your wearable, there's the goals that you have, which is a data point, which is very important in personalized nutrition. There is your agenda, for instance, so what are you going to do, what's your free time, your interests, your wants and needs. So there's a lot of data there. And the challenge always is to find meaningful ways of interacting, finding interaction between those data bases, basically. And that's always something that you should have in your mind when you're talking about personalized nutrition, that it is a data game. So you should take databases and ICT systems and interaction really seriously from day one. And also because it is really big and it's really important, but try to make it really small and really simple in the beginning. I think that's my best advice that I can give to anyone.
I'll just add, just one thought on that, and building on Nard's last comment. We're always going to have some challenges in terms of managing the data and getting dissimilar data sets to speak together, right? That's part of the promise of GPT. So we have to consider that there are going to continue to be some challenges as data access, because data is currency for many organizations. So without other incentives or requirements for sharing in the near future, the technology may exceed access as data remains proprietary. So how do we manage that? I think it really becomes understanding, again, on an individual basis, which data is most important to them. If somebody is a salt-sensitive hypertensive and they learn they have hypertension and they're willing to reduce salt, they don't need a lot of data points to modify their behavior. That's an extreme example and unlikely to work for most of the population. But the reality of it is, it's not necessarily that more data wins. More data can be confusing. When we looked at consumers, over 3,000 consumers in the US, we actually found that most of them are willing to share their data. But the reason they're willing to share their data, it's not because there aren't any concerns around privacy, but they're having a hard time making sense of it all. And they want to share it so that they can get the support they need to make better decisions. So I think it's going to be a combination of really understanding which data can be motivating, which data can be engaging, and also understanding that that may not be the same depending on somebody's health journey. What's motivating at one point in time may not be motivating down the road as goals change, whether that's a change in a medical issue arises, or somebody's changing or training to run a marathon, and sometimes it's both at the same time. So I really like what Nard is saying. Just want to underscore the point about it is really important to right-size the data to meet a person's goals, and at the same time not be so simplified that correcting in one area causes a problem in something else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think also in this line of reasoning, a lot of people seem to think that a lot of data is what they need, and they get really happy talking about big data or about machine learning or AI, which requires a lot of data. But I think for most personalized nutrition businesses that I know that actually sell services or products to consumers, it's not so much about the amount, but about the quality of the data that they can get. And you can use really simple statistics or just a piece of paper with that data to actually learn from it. So I mean, before you get into AI and machine learning and reinforced learning or whatever, you need so much data. A lot of the companies are not there yet, and it's then much more important to focus on the gems, on the pearls, on the data that you have, and to try to make that better, and to try to base your business on that. At least that's why I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, Josh, but I think that's something that a lot of companies, they're so focused on big data and AI that they forget that it's about the quality of the data that they have now.
Yeah, there really needs to be some guidance around sort of data structuring if we're really going to be able to make the best use of it. I think that gets lost. And I think that with that, right, it's so important for companies to define their data strategy. I think they see data as gold, they're collecting the data, but they're not going into it with sort of a mindful application. So I do think that one of the very first things that companies should be doing is they're thinking about, okay, this is our data opportunity. They should be going in thinking strategically about this is our data opportunity, not that if we have data, then there will be revenue down the line for it.
And also start with the ending with the goal in mind, right? So this is what we want to reach. How can data help us?
Yes.
It's like, oh, we've got data. Where do we go with the data? No. You first have a goal, and then you try to fit the data to that, right? Try to make the data work towards the goal.
Yeah, I also think too along those lines, just because I mentioned earlier, I think it's very important to define a problem to solve. It's also okay if your data is, if you're planning to use that data to solve a different problem or a different consumer goal with another partner, but you still need to go into it understanding what that would be and what other data you may be combining with that so that you can have an aligned structure and strategy.
Yeah.
Thank you for shedding some light on, I suppose, the system in which personalized nutrition sits. And with this in mind, I was hoping that we could kind of go a little bit more granular into the customer. So we have a good idea now of the business, of the different elements that fits into personalized nutrition. But from a consumer perspective, it sounds like we can make it as complicated or as simple and relevant to our target audience. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience in this space, Josh, with the next slide, if you don't mind, Siobhan. Because it seems like there are so many different aspects here again that are going to be at play on the consumer side. Thank you.
Of course. No, I'm very happy to talk more about the consumer. Siobhan, if you don't mind, you could actually move to the next slide. Thank you. So what I'm going to be sharing with you here today is from a series of studies that we at Nlumn conducted over the course of late last year and into this year, quantitative and qualitative research with 3,000 consumers in the US, 3,000 people that are interested in and or practicing personalized nutrition. There's a lot of studies out there really looking at consumer behaviors, attitudes, benefits they're seeking broadly from their food, but there weren't really any out there that we saw that were focused on personalized nutrition. And we keep hearing there's this tension, right, that consumer personalized nutrition is very niche, but then we hear these really large numbers about it's multi-billion dollars worth of business. So we really wanted to understand, well, what is the level of interest? And so the first thing that I want to say is interest in personalized nutrition is high. What we actually found, and this is a representative sample of the of the U.S. population, 57% of the people that we talk to are interested in or practicing personalized nutrition, and a high number of them are very interested. However, a gap exists. While more than half are interested, it's less than 15% that are using or have used personalized nutrition. And I'll get into some of what the reason for that is as we continue the discussion. But it's not just about price. There's other factors here as well. One of the big challenges, though, is that while health is extremely important to these consumers, they define health very broadly. So you have to be very careful about trying to approach personalized nutrition just as nutrition. There is greater than 85% overlap between personalized nutrition and interest in things like personalized supplements, personalized well-being practices, as well as like personalized exercise plans. So people are looking to reach their health and well-being goals through multiple different avenues. So health is defined broadly. They're looking for holistic approaches to health. So what's happening right now? So Siobhan, if you want to go to the next slide. So what we're seeing in today's market is there's a bit of a mismatch. At a high level, the value equation for consumers interested in personalized nutrition, or those practicing personalized nutrition, it's not quite aligned with the costs. But when you think about cost, you have to think about money and effort. So what we found is most people that invest in personalized programs will invest about $200 to $250. That doesn't matter in US dollars. That doesn't matter so much if it's one time or a subscription base or over a year, that's about what you're going to get. And that to some extent is because the results they're receiving can be very mixed, right? They're not necessarily achieving their health goals or getting the desired benefits. So money is a real issue. I think it'd be helpful to kind of say that, there's this perception that personalized nutrition is for the healthy and the wealthy. In our survey, what we actually found is the greatest interest in personalized nutrition is not among the wealthy. It is disproportionately high among consumers making less than $100,000 a year relative to their representation in the census. Users tend to be making over $150,000 a year. So cost is a factor. It'd be a mistake to deny that. I mean, about half that had a plan and stopped it because it's too expensive. And most of the ones that haven't tried it yet, it's because cost is a barrier. But when we're looking at cost, it's not just money, it's about effort. And what we see is that most users stop participating in their program within 6 months because the effort isn't worth the results. We saw that almost 2/3 of consumers are seeking a high level of support, but only about 1/3 are getting it. And they want support from qualified professionals to help to give them guidance. But without that, what you see are responses like, it didn't work. I fell back into old habits. This didn't work for my family. It worked for a while, but stopped working. So I think in some cases, and let's be honest, some of the programs out there aren't robust. And there's a need to continue to demonstrate efficacy. But I think marrying efficacious or science-based programs that are rooted in specific consumer needs and have the right support can tip this value equation. There's a reason people are spending $1,000 for an iPhone. It's because they see value in it. We have more work to do to deliver value in personalized nutrition. And I'll just say this, scan me here if you're interested in seeing, getting more information from these reports. You can scan here and access any of our reports. But again, I think that there's a big opportunity here to better meet consumer needs. One note as it relates to consumer needs, there's a mismatch between the science of personalization and what consumers are seeking. Some of the best science around personalization relates to traditional biomarkers and areas that have been well studied, things like pre-diabetes or cardiovascular health. When we talk to consumers, some of the top benefits they're looking for relate more to holistic health and quality of life, where we don't necessarily have good markers and we may not have the best measures. So people want quality of life. They want emotional health and well-being. They want to experience less stress. And maybe not surprising in in society today where everybody is burning both ends of the candle, sleep is number one across almost every generation that we surveyed. So let me pause there, because I know I could talk for a long time about our consumer data, but I think that this value equation is an important point. We have to continue to deliver results and manage costs for people that are interested in personalized nutrition.
Maybe Nard, I know you have also quite a lot of experience in this space. Did you come up with the similar findings?
I see that I was muted. No, I said perhaps I can add one anecdote from the time that I was in the US often. Actually talked to a client of Habit, which was which also required an investment of about $300 and asked you to prick your finger 3 times over the course of 2 hours. So it was quite an investment. So you could definitely say that people doing that are people that are interested in their health. And that's, I think, one of the challenges, one of the issues in personalized nutrition is that we are always talking to and with people who are interested in their health. And people who are interested in their health are usually quite healthy. They are interested in their health, so they kind of have, they know what they're eating, etc. And then so they are already at quite a high level. They're above average in what they eat, in the supplement use, in how healthy they are, etc. So to add value for them, with a personalized nutrition approach, it's quite hard. So you really have this, and that's was what George was also alluding to. There's this gap between the value and the price that they pay. That it's quite hard for them to become healthier. So the one thing that's extremely important in personalized nutrition is to actually really know the goal of someone and what they want to achieve, what they want to change. So if you know where they are health-wise or otherwise and where they want to go, then you can give them advice on how to get there. And that's valuable for people. But just health or holistic, I mean, I've sometimes called it the salmon, broccoli, rice phenomenon in personalized nutrition, is that if you just go to a personalized nutrition company and you fill out, I want to get healthier, etc., you basically get nutritional advice, which I jokingly say is always, whole grain rice with broccoli and salmon, because that's the healthiest meal in the world. But the people were already eating that. So the added value of getting, let's say, healthy recipes is not that big. So you really have to be more specific and know the goals of people and know their psychological motivation, basically their needs and wants, to really help them and to really add value. I think that's really one of the challenges that I have seen also in the company that I ran and the all the other companies that I helped, and also in the research project that I've done.
Thank you very much, Nard, for this additional comment. 1 second.
Also saw a question come by from Stephen Rumsey, which I think is interesting as well in this context. Not sure if we want to answer that now or wait for that, or.
I think we'll leave it until later, maybe, Nard. I was just wondering, I mean, one of you is based here in Europe, in the Netherlands, the other one is in the States. Have you seen some significant differences across different regions of our market?
George, can you?
Yeah, so a few things that I'll highlight. One of the things that I mentioned is at least U.S. consumers seem very willing to share their data. I really feel that Europe is a bit ahead when it relates to data privacy and data management. And I don't know that the willingness to share data would be as great there, where my sense is that in some of those countries it's not. One other key difference, or actually it's not so much a key difference, but a very interesting similarity. One of the things that comes up a lot, was actually raised a lot when we had Habit, is that are consumers willing to test? What's the willingness to test? And we actually found out that more than 50% of consumers are interested or in testing. And what you actually find is we looked across multiple countries. We looked at the US, we looked at the UK, we looked at Australia, Germany, and South Korea. Across each of those markets, everybody was very interested in testing, and the number one test method across all countries that was preferred was at-home finger prick testing. In the US, that was tied with getting a blood draw in the lab. In Germany, that was tied with doing a survey-based testing methodology. But the idea that people aren't willing to do some testing, to give like a little bit of blood to learn about their health, is not true. There's a high interest in that. What we need to be able to do is make sure that they're being, particularly with at-home testing, that the type of testing they're doing is robust and evidence-based. So I think that's a few interesting points about consumer differences and similarities. From a market standpoint, just one of the things that I would probably share with everyone, US is maybe not surprisingly the largest market for this. Asia Pacific is the fastest growing. Europe I think, is probably more on the leading edge with respect to data privacy and AI regulation. Some of the challenges that come with that, though, is it also can make it, I think it's definitely the right thing to do as it relates to consumers, but I think it's also slow growth a little bit in Europe as well. And Nard, the other thing too, I know we've talked before just about some of the challenges with Europe and how different, each country in Europe can be as it relates to personalized nutrition.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the biggest challenges. I've actually worked with European companies that wanted to scale within Europe. Also, once wrote a research proposal for a EU subsidy fund on this. Because if you have, let's say, a well-established personalized nutrition business, let's say Holland, and you want to scale, because Holland is very small, 18 million people, the target audience really is very limited. So you quickly want to scale to the larger countries in Europe. But even if you want to scale to Belgium, which is the same language as Holland, but the food culture is completely different. So you would have to use different names for the same ingredients. So your ontologies go all over the place. You would have to use different recipes, but also, it's very difficult in that respect to quickly scale your personalized nutrition solution, let alone products, across Europe, because the food cultures are so different. The words people use, the way people use the foods are completely different. In Holland, for instance, it's very common to have breakfast with bread in the morning, and a lunch with bread in the afternoon, which is like a second breakfast, then warm meal in the evening. Whereas in Germany, our neighboring country, they will have a warm lunch and have a completely different, and again, a warm meal in the evening often. So, I mean, even with recipes and with ingredients, etc., it's really difficult to quickly scale. So I think that's one of the big differences between the EU and the US. Definitely data. I mean, there's also differences there between countries. Germany is notoriously difficult, Italy as well, to have consumers share their data. But I mean, I've also been involved in a lot of scientific research where we also ask quite a lot of data from the audience. And I do think that because of the strict regulations and because of the new AI Act, but also because of the strict regulations around privacy, it's actually easier perhaps in Europe to start a business because you know exactly what to do, data-wise and privacy-wise in all of the different countries in Europe. I'm not sure if that's really holding back innovation, because it's actually for companies, but also for consumers, quite clear what they can expect. And in my experience, if you explain to consumers how the data is going to be used, if you're transparent with them, have a good informed consent protocol, then they are willing to share their data because they will benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. So I suppose that kind of engagement and connection with the consumer and the customer is so important for success here. It's still mind-blowing to see the difference between the people who are actually interested in personalized nutrition versus the ones that are investing. The other variable that resonates with me is around time. How long does it take for people to start seeing some results, some benefit? So, around the value equation there, I suppose time is probably another very important factor. That's what comes to mind right now. And we have already touched on a number of different challenges and opportunities around personalized nutrition. So in the interest of time, I would like to suggest that we move to the next slide, Siobhan, if you don't mind, and maybe go through what personalized nutrition means from a business perspective. What are the challenges and how you guys are addressing those and bringing some solutions to the people, to the businesses that are interested in that space?
Yeah, so I think that one of the challenges that many of the companies struggle with And I'm really interested also to learn what Josh's experiences are with that. Is that there are so many possibilities in personalized nutrition, in measuring and in interacting and using AI, etc. There's so much that I think one of the big struggles of beginning companies, especially, but also larger corporations that want to go into personalized nutrition, is to see where they will limit themselves, because there is what you can do is extremely wide. You can do blood tests and DNA and this and that and use sensor, etc. But really, trying to be very good at a small subset and finding a right target audience to use that subset on and then grow from there. I think that's the big challenge, because there's so much is possible that it's very difficult to choose what you're going to do. I think that's one of the big challenges that I see companies struggle with, and I struggle with myself as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges, and I think it comes from a few things, right? A lot of times companies want to put their brand at the center of a personalized ecosystem, right? So the idea that within that business model, everything runs through their brand. That could be problematic for a few reasons. Simply on the company side of things, you may not be good at everything that's required to deliver a successful business model. But the second thing too, it's kind of taking the person out of personalization. So most of the time when we're working with a company, we really, kind of come back to that point. We really start with, whose problem are you trying to solve? And then really go through a process of saying, okay, for that problem, what can you do well? What can you do better than anybody else? And is it the science? Is it providing information? Is it helping to drive behavior change? And then in that context, spend some time with them about like, okay, because a lot of companies will say, not surprisingly, they can do a lot of those things well. But then we always want to understand, okay, great. Where can you make money? And importantly, where can you make profit? Right? Because you don't want to be in a situation where it's sort of like you're completely dependent on scale for being able to see some return for your efforts. And then what we do is we work to fill in the gaps for them with which partners can help to address maybe what you don't do as well, or maybe what isn't going to be as profitable for you. But the really nice thing about that is you almost get a nascent term sheet to approach partners with in terms of how to build your ecosystem or your minimal viable ecosystem. So that's been a great way to help different partners in terms of how to approach this, right? Really beginning with the person in the center of personalization. One of the big challenges that we touched on earlier, or at least maybe it's a misperception, is that a lot of big food companies will be thinking, well, I can't make N of 1 products, or it's even difficult to make products for like small subgroups. And that strikes me as a little bit funny, because big food companies, food and beverage companies, have the very best behavior change tool out there. The end product, really, to help somebody make a better choice. It's a matter of helping to, sort those products for the right groups, optimize those products for nutrients that those individuals may not be getting, and then take it one step further and see how you can reach another level of personalization. I'll give a very specific example. A lot of companies are very interested in ketogenic diet-friendly products. Those products tend to oftentimes lack fiber, or may not have a great fat profile, may lack a healthy fat profile. So simply making some changes to those products could help make them healthier for individuals that are choosing that. Again, that is maybe maybe we're not poking or prodding people or looking at their biology, but for those consumers that are choosing that path, a tailored nutrition consumer, that's a better choice. Why are most people coming to ketogenic diets? It's to lose weight. About 3/4 of them are looking to lose weight. So then you can kind of look to kind of understand where they are on their weight loss journey and then dial that in a little further in terms of what else they might need, whether that would be lower calorie products, other ingredients aligned to that benefit. But in this way, you can start with sorting your products, delivering better products, and then adding a different level of personalization. So hence, you're doing personalization at scale. And maybe in the future, then it's tying it into another partner that helps to support specific measures.
Thank you so much for giving us that clarity and not only addressing those challenges, but also providing some very tangible ways of addressing it. So thank you very much to both of you. And I would like to transition to our last slide for today's panel discussion. If you don't mind, Siobhan, moving to the next slide, please, around the myths and the misconceptions. And to some extent, we probably touch on that, but for the benefit of our audience, I would like to go through that a little bit more. We spoke about the data architecture. We spoke about biomarkers, accessibility. So, I mean, the question I have for you is it a reality? Can business, survive and thrive in that space, or is it still a perception? And do you have any insight on what would be the best technology to start this journey on personalized nutrition? Do you have any tips, any guidance for us, and help us to see the wood from the trees, so to speak, in terms of how we could move forward in that space?
Yeah, perhaps I can start with the tech question, because I think that's really interesting. Because as Josh also said, I think one of the misconceptions is that personalized nutrition is a technology area, is really technology heavy, because it doesn't necessarily need to be. I think personalized nutrition originated from a very tech savvy, perhaps even you could even call it, let's say, more a male oriented field, where people measure themselves and they want to be the CEO of their own health, and really this really approach of being in control, etc., to now moving to a much more holistic, perhaps female, perhaps more soft kind of market, where it's more about helping people with their goals, and still using science, and still using, let's say, technology, but more in a more using behavioral change technologies and behavioral science to get people to change their behavior. And there's still, let's say, a science element. There's still, you need a blood value, etc. But it's not, the focus is not anymore, I think, on the technology, but the focus is on how to use that to get people to actually change their behavior and reach their goals. So I think that's really a change that I think we've seen over the last 10, perhaps 20 years in personalized nutrition, moving from this really tech-oriented, quantified self kind of idea of personalized nutrition towards a much more broader appeal and let's say more holistic, perhaps you could call it softer idea of personalized nutrition.
Thank you, Nard. And Josh, would you like to again help us to understand, where the myths and misconceptions potentially are around personalized nutrition?
Yeah, just in the interest of time, I really would like to speak to two. The first one I touched on briefly. It's the myth that this is something that is niche, or that interest is only with a very small group. There are, as I said, 57% of people that are interested, 15% or less that are participating. That's a huge gap. And that gap is driven really by a lot of people that right now don't have access to good solutions. And so making personalized or tailored options more accessible can be a very important way to help to grow your business. To do that, I think we need to be mindful that there is, when we touched on data earlier, there is a big data gap. We need more representative data to be able to develop programs that are evidence-based and accessible for all people that could potentially benefit. So I think that's one important piece. The other important myth is that personalized nutrition or more precision approaches would fly in the face of existing dietary guidance. It's not a huge data set, but what we're actually seeing is that more personalized approaches can help people achieve dietary guidelines. In a large workplace study that we did for Habit, we actually saw that providing more personalized recommendations actually helped people to achieve dietary recommendations. They reduced sodium and sugar intake by about 20%. They increased fruit and vegetable intake. They increased fiber and improved their fatty acid profile. That was associated with weight loss and reductions in things like LDL. So personalized nutrition doesn't fly in the face of good dietary guidance. I think personalized nutrition can help people achieve dietary recommendations and their unique health goals.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us around myths and misconceptions. We have only 4 minutes left. I can see that we did get some great engagement from our audience as well through the polls, and we do have a couple of questions and answers that have been asked. Unfortunately, we won't have too much time to go through all of that, but my suggestion is that we will certainly come back to you after the webinar with some answers. I might just pick one question here from Stephen, and Stephen is asking us, do we really have the tools and ability to measure and know individual needs? For example, daily caloric intake, can we conveniently measure when one has reached their caloric break-even? Do we know how much magnesium, vitamin C, zinc, or any mineral or vitamins under different daily situations? Or are we still working on data related to population means? And how do we get there? So there is a lot in this question alone. I just would like to maybe spend a couple of minutes on that. Stephen's question really is around, do we actually have the tools and ability today to measure and know what the individual needs are?
So perhaps I already looked at the question, and so I actually think, yeah, sure, we know. I mean, that's not the hard part, basically. I mean, we can be 20% off left or right, but it doesn't really matter. It's nutrition. It's not rocket science. I think it's much more important. What does someone actually want to change, right? And if you know that, then you can help them with improvements in their diet. So, going from exactly knowing what someone is eating, which may not be that relevant, to how can we improve your current diet to reach your goal. It's a completely different set of measurements and questions that you need, which is much more relevant, I think, than knowing exactly what someone eats, because it's almost impossible to get that. Perhaps what I'm so no, I think because I think also perhaps very shortly also the question from Rachel on what a winning company could be. So I think also echoing Josh's remarks on the myths and misconceptions, and also on what's important in the challenges. I think winning combinations at the moment, what you see is smart combinations. So simple, smart combinations of companies. So for instance, an analysis company working together with a supplement company. You get your blood drawn, you know what's happening, this is the supplement you need, this is the advice you need. So really these really simple to understand, close-knit small ecosystems. Don't think that you can do everything yourself. Look for a partner and then try to add value for the consumer. I think those companies that you see now, those are the winning solutions in personalized nutrition. I wanted to ask that. I wanted to answer that once.
Yeah. I'll just add one quick comment for Steve. I do think that, to Nard's point, on a population basis, we have some good measures as it relates to looking at population and absence of disease. For all of these measures, we don't necessarily have easy ways to test at home. But one of the things that needs to be considered is the continuum from disease to health, which is, while we may know on a population basis what levels help us to avoid, or subpopulation basis avoid certain conditions, we don't necessarily know those measures as it relates to optimizing health. So being able to understand, what measures are best for a person to reach their unique goals without throwing out something else out of whack does require more study. We have biomarkers of disease. We don't necessarily have the best biomarkers for performance or health optimization. And let's be honest, we need more work to define what optimization means on an individual level.
Thank you. Thank you both. Unfortunately, we are running out of time right now, so I think we're going to leave it like that. However, I think we have set the scene for success here, really understanding what personalized nutrition is and what it means from a business, but also from a consumer perspective. So I invite you to join us again in early October, on the Tuesday, the 8th of October. We will run another session, probably a little bit more focused on the business applications related to personalized nutrition. We will look at different business models. We will look at case studies, lessons learned, and again, look at opportunities and challenges and how we can address those to shape the future of personalized nutrition. So Siobhan, Nard, and Josh, a big thank you to the three of you, and a big thank you to our audience. We've had a great participation today. Thank you all for joining us. We will continue to engage with you over the next couple of weeks until we meet again on the 8th of October. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, and talk again soon. Bye.